In a futile attempt to contain the creature, Chase, Rocky, Marshall, and Zuma banded together to trap the Varrox Malls in the vents. They had underestimated its intelligence, however, and electrical stability of the building, two factors that led it to breaking free from the trap. In their desperate time of need, the last dog anyone thought they'd see suddenly emerged to the rescue team. Liberty, their mutual friend from Adventure City. None of the dogs spoke at the sight of her, only single stuttering her name. Looking around wearily, Liberty took a moment to check behind them, surveying the path in case Varrox Miles was in pursuit. Seeing nothing but darkness in the corridors, she turned to look back at her friends to address them. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Zuma butted in. That doesn't even begin to describe it, he barked, then winced at the volume of his voice, knowing how loud sounds were easily targeted for the creature. How did she even get down here? It's a long story. Liberty held up her paw in an attempt to reassure him. But right now, oh no, no, no. It was Chase who interrupted. We've all been through enough, and we've already lost 2 members because of this shit. That's what's going to be going on last week. He flattened his ears, staring down at the smaller dog. Let me guess, you're working for the ACG, aren't you? Those ruffians? Please, she waved off the question. You think I worked for savages like them? Rocky narrowed his eyes. Well, you did throw an exploding fire bottle a few seconds ago. They're called Molotov cocktails, Rocky. Liberty shot back. Exactly. Where the hell did you get that? Liberty went silent, flicking her gaze to the side while she kneeled her paws on the ground. It was true that she had a secret, but how to share it with 4 dogs she clearly had seen death was challenging. Chase and Zuma had cornered 2 significantly stronger dogs who were demanding answers from her. Rocky was standing behind, cradling a fearful Marshall, although still not taking his eyes off the dachshund. Realizing that there was no way out, figuratively and literally, she spoke up. All right, fine. You're right. I was sent here. I knew it, Zuma growled, baring his teeth. But not from the ACG, she protested. I'm on a special assignment from the Archline Foundation, she hesitantly explained, trying to save himself from being torn to pieces by larger dogs. I assume you don't know who they are. You think we know jack shit anything? Chase hissed, bristling his fur. At this point, I'm willing to believe in whatever. Who are they? Taking a deep breath, Liberty spoke. Of course Captain Cyrus wouldn't tell you. They're genetic researchers, hell-bent on designing perfect animals, or something like that. She continued as everyone tilted their heads in confusion. Recently, they had a breach in one of their facilities. A certain parasitic creature had escaped. Chase recoiled. You mean Varrox Malls? It came from them? Indeed, Liberty nodded. They're not going to be happy about it, but they've sent me to Adventure Bay to gather some samples. What do you mean gather? Zuma raised an eyebrow. Rubbing her arm uncomfortably, Liberty knew that this was the part they weren't going to like. Even though Varrox Miles is out of control, they're taking the opportunity to see how it fares in the wild, so they've hired me to investigate its behavior and document whatever it does. Well, it came out of rubble. You can write that down, Zuma grumbled. Did it now? Liberty exclaimed. That's unfortunate. Sorry to hear that. Well, technically it came from Sky, Rocky said. Then it jumped to bodies into rubble, apparently. Chase could even visibly seen shape freezing up. It can do that? The smaller dog sat down. I don't remember reading that in the files. Well, it's what Chase said. Rocky was going to say something else when the shepherd suddenly jutted into the conversation. Hey, that's in the past now, he said, sweat pooling under his paws. Under the matters now is here staying alive and escaping that thing. Zuma narrowed his eyes, studying Chase. Hey, wait a minute, the mix began. You said you were sent here to gather samples on the creature, he said, recanting her story. But why aren't you down in the basement? Liberty shot up again. Because I'm investigating the worst case of infection I've ever seen. Wouldn't Varrox Miles itself classify as that? No, she shook her head. Believe it or not, there's something even worse down here in the basement. She shuddered as an aurora of fear and confusion consumed the room. Before she could say anything else, Chase closed the distance between them and stared into her eyes. Are you saying there's more? Liberty took a step back, the sudden wave of violation of personal space. I hate to tell you this, but Varrock Smiles may have done something to the lookout. I gathered what I could to try to escape, but she bristled in frustration. The exit locked behind me and I couldn't get it open. I think the power's out. Yeah, that thing destroyed the fuse box a couple of hours ago, Rocky said, remembering the creature's cruel method of crippling its prey. You must have been seconds from being out before it happened. Wait a minute. How did you even get down here in the first place? Chase suddenly realized, looking Liberty up and down. And what exit? Because we got in from the vents. Ryder's garage, the Dachshund replied. There is a path in the basement that leads us right here. The door was cracked when I came through, but it closed behind me. Zuma jumped up, calling himself to action. That's our way out, she just said. It's blocked from the lack of power. Chase turned to him. Then suddenly a realization hit his mind like a slamming on the brakes. He remembered when he sent back Rocky through the rain to investigate the fuse box, and when it came back with interesting revelation. Wait, Rocky said that the power was only gone from the tower, he points out. There's totally power down here. How else would the vent ceiling work? He turned back to Liberty. You should be able to open the doors. Why can't you? Everyone sat in silence, trying to comprehend the new information. If the basement was still powered, then why was Liberty blocked from leaving? Every answer they seemed to only find came with more questions. Shaking his head, Chase only cared about here and now. Liberty's words weren't making any sense, and the shepherd was already becoming wary of her presence. All right, Archland spy, he leaned into Liberty with flattened ears, slightly baring his teeth. What are you hiding from us? I'm not hiding anything, she countered him. Nothing says checks you out. Well then, I'm just as confused as you. Can we stop arguing? Zuma protested. That thing is actively looking for us. Rocky spoke up in a fearful voice. He's right. We can't stay here. Thinking for a moment, Chase was irritated by Liberty's infuriation, but knew that there were other matters at hand. Growling faintly, he looked at the smaller dog up and down. We had a power surge back there. Almost got me killed and freed of the creature from our trap. You almost trapped it? Liberty recoiled in surprise. Yeah, almost did this ACG's entire job for them in 1 hour, until everything had messed up completely, the shepherd gripped. The surge happened and undid everything. Liberty went eye-wide. Oh, she said, contorting a little. That may have been my fault. What? Rocky exclaimed. What did you do? Now there were 3 dogs glaring daggers into Liberty, who was growing visibly tenser as she spoke. It seemed like she was the accusatory comment from turning the tail and running in as fast as she could. If I thought I overclocked the voltage, she said slowly, anxiously taking a step back, it would automatically restart the systems? A peal of nervous laughter left her, desperately trying to find a common ground with the hostile animals around her. That works, right? Overload something, it resets? Shaking the head, Rocky spoke up as Chase was already beginning to bare his teeth. It wouldn't. Those doors are electric, sure, but spiking the voltage should just break them, not open them. Liberty was unable to respond as Chase crashed into her, pinning her to the floor. We had it locked down and you let it out? You almost got me killed! Get off of me, she protested, trying to wrench her way out of his grasp, although he was leagues stronger than her. The shepherd was thriving, almost ready to tear the smaller dog into pieces. Marshall came to his side in a flash, putting his paw against his friend. Chase, stop! It's going to hear us! At the Dalmatian's words, he felt himself slightly coming back to his senses, but he was beyond anger that Liberty was responsible for their failures. Sighing, he removed his paws from the Dachshund and released her, stepping aside so she could stand. After all we've been through, he muttered to her. Everything that happened in the city, you didn't even write or call, and now this? Lowering her head, Liberty felt shame. I'm sorry. I'd like to help you all get out of here. Chase nodded, already regretting his outburst. As he stepped aside as Rocky came forward, a question came on his mind. You said that you were hired by the labs Varrock Smiles escaped from? The mix said slowly. By chance, is there anything you know about the monster that could help us? A way to kill it? Like what? Liberty tilted her head. Like it's genetic makeup or something? It's afraid of fire, Zuma piped up. Everything on fucking Earth is afraid of fire. Chase flashed the lab a cold side eye, and multiple glares were exchanged between them. Liberty fought for a moment, running the math in her head. Despite its lethality, the body itself was actually very vulnerable, she said to the group. It's just all exposed veins and organs after all. Yeah, but we can't fight that thing, Rocky argued. Not even all of us at once. We don't need to fight it. Zuma pushed past everyone and came to the center. I've been looking around since we came down here. It clearly reacted to the Molotov and blowtorch, so what if we create some kind of explosion? In the lookout? Chase recoiled at the thought. We can't just destroy our home. There is gas containers all over the place. The lab pressed his idea, then turned to Liberty. Maybe not an explosion, but we could create a fire big enough. Would that kill it? The Dachshund fought for a moment, trying to remember the data she had read from the labs. It would have to be complete incineration, with no chance of escaping. So basically the fire would have to completely consume it. I'm taking the full piles of ash. Great, Zuma wagged his tail, happy that someone was finally agreeing with him. Let's go find some gasoline and block some doors. No! Chase jumped in front of the lab, baring his teeth. Don't you remember the original plan? I need to get into the boiler room. I thought that plan failed, Rocky asked, tilting his head. It never failed, the shepherd hissed. There's a radio there to contact Captain Cyrus. Once I get it back, this place will be swarming with soldiers and Varrock's mouths will be disposed of. Chase, Liberty came to his side. It's not going to be that simple. What do you mean? The police officer faced her, raising an eyebrow. Because it's not just Varrock's malice that needs disposing of. Her voice quivered slightly, and a wave of fear that went over her. There's something you need to see. The dogs had questions, but Liberty just shook her head and beckoned them to follow. Rocky followed first with Marshall, although Chase and Zuma were still glaring daggers at one another. Their hostility was silently upsetting Liberty, as she remembered long ago how close they had been as friends, and what in the world could be happening between them to break them apart. They were suppressing their words now, but it was easy to tell that the two were growing tenser by the minute. Varrock's Smalls had fled from the cocktail Molotov, disappearing into the dark corridors of the basement. The walls were nothing but old peeling white paint, with cords and wires dangling from the top. The floors expanding out with the dirty black and white tiles. Every few moments, an echoing scream would bounce off the hallways, seemingly coming out of nowhere. Marshall jumped at each one, and Chase would emit a low whine. The creature was regrouping, collecting itself elsewhere, before it took to the hallways again. Stalking down its prey, the group of five stopped at every corner, peeking around to make sure they wouldn't accidentally run head-on into danger. Even with Liberty as their newest addition, they were still powerless if Varrock's Mouth succeeded in hunting them down. So what are you showing us? Zuma whispered as the group got against the wall, moving in single file. Liberty peered through the cracked doors, scanning the dark corridors on the other side. All I could say is, do you know how long Varrock's Miles has been in Adventure Bay? Chase spoke up, positioned behind the Dachshund. I only learned about it a few days ago from Cyrus. My best guess is a few days. Try a week, she responded grimly, grimacing in disgust at what she was seeing through the doorway. An entire week? The shepherd exclaimed. What makes you say that? Shuddering, Liberty backed away from the door, returning to her companions as she pointed the paw. Remember when I said there was something worse in this basement? She was visibly shaking, piece of her pleading for it all to be a dream. Go and see for yourself. There was a feeling of dread that washed over the group, piercing lash of static that infested all five dogs at once. She had been addressing Chase, putting him in the position of walking through the door first and changing whatever was behind it. Usually the shepherd enjoyed being the one to take leadership, but now he wasn't feeling so sure, and yet no one knew he would take in charge, putting every effort ounce of his willpower into moving. Chase had been able to walk the valley of death. I'm going. Rocky suddenly pushed past the shepherd. Chase reared in horror, fearing the mix was walking into his own demise. Rocky, let me! The eco-dog slowly turned his head, looking at Chase directly in the eyes. I'm going. His tone was sharp, enough to shut the shepherd up, and he closed his mouth, taking a deep breath. Rocky walked forward and went through the disappearing, through the metal doorway. The four dogs listened intently, all frozen in place and fearing to utter a single word. There were no screams yet, no rears coming from the creature, and eventually Chase's anxiety completely shook over. "Rocky?" he whispered, creeping his nose along the wall to the door, moving slowly. There was no response. He couldn't take it anymore. "Rocky, are you—" Chase was left in the wall and passed under the doorway, following his friend inside. It was like walking into the depths of hell. The first thing he saw was Rocky standing paralyzed in fear as he quivered in terror. The eyes locked upwards as he stared out. Chase was about to call his friend when a gruesome sight met his eyes, locking him in place as well. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, not even anything the simple movie or book could come up with. For all he knew, he had just walked straight into another world. The walls were slaved in slime, glistening in putrid light. Bilious flesh-like masses were growing out of the wall, leaching around the corridor and along the ceiling. It was like walking down a giant human throat. You can't even see the edges on the walls of the ceiling met. All just wet, veiny, red muscle mass that covered the surface. Translucent sludge dripped down from the ceiling, tapping at the slippery floor so that it was undergoing disgusting transformation. Taking a fearful step into the esophagus that lay the hallway turned into, Chase barely got a word out. His paw splashed into the warm, sticky slime that was collecting on the tile. A repulsive stench of his stomach acid hitting the nose. Tumor-like lumps were dotted around the walls in various sizes, like boils puffing up in one's throat. Most of the overhead lights were obscured, but a weak glow was able to pass through the biomass, providing only a tiny amount of lighting for the puppies to see their way in. What is—" he stammered, darting his eyes as the nightmare unfolded before him. He came to Rocky's side, who still hadn't moved. "What the hell is all this? What happened down here?" Liberty followed behind him, her face stained with discomfort as she entered the vile corridor. "It's a hive. This is what the Varrox Miles has been doing for the past week or so." Zuma and Marshall entered after her, the lab immediately grabbing the Dalmatian and holding him close at the horrible sight before him. Slowly turning around, Chase could feel his sanity breaking. "A hive?" he repeated in disbelief. "That thing has been nesting down here right under our noses? What is all this?" Zuma gagged from the stench. "How did he even build all this?" I don't know," Liberty confessed, covering her mouth as she was seconds from throwing up. "The Archline Foundation didn't mention any behavior, even remotely similar to this. This is new." Quaking inside, Chase stared down at the pulsing cavern. We have to go down here, don't we? This is the only way to Ryder's garage." "I'm going to assume that it didn't always look like this." The dachshund hesitantly continued forward. "Let's just keep going." With great precaution, Zuma carefully led Marshall along the terrifying pathway, each step producing a sickening noise as it pressed onto the slime below. Every few feet they passed on the new monstrosity to the moldedest of their eyes and mind. And it wasn't just one room. The horror continued and expanded, transforming the entire side of the basement into what could only be called as Varrox Miles' personal hive. Deep into the dark wasteland, they came to an intersection, but the left and right paths were completely blocked. Thick, tendon-like strings stretched from the floor into the ceiling, forming a tough barricade barring off the passage to the new paths and forcing the route to remain one way. As they passed by, the sting started vibrating it for a few seconds, producing a low, layered hum that echoed throughout the living corridors. I hate this. Rocky nervously paced, flinching as clear slime dripped on his back. "Liberty, talk to me," Chase called in front of the line. "Where are we going?" The small dog took a moment to respond, over-encumbered by her slowly slipping sanity. "I remember coming to a series of rooms, one of which had electrical systems, where it caused a surge. If we're going to find a way out why the door is sealed, we have to get there first. If we end up getting to the garage, I could find a dielectric driver," Rocky inquired, breathing heavily. "Then I could fix the breakers, and you could get into the boiler room." "Marshall," Chase called from behind him. "How are you doing back there? Talk to me." Walking as if it were automatic, elucidated. The Dalmatian spoke with a broken voice. He hadn't stopped staring at the ground. Chase, I really don't want to talk right now. Looking up from the group, Zuma's eyes briefly centered on the sickly white boils that grew from the wall. With morbid curiosity, he approached the sack. A wet smell that he couldn't describe foaming up in his nose, despite every instinct telling him to back away. There was something drawing him towards it. It was massive in size, significantly bigger than the Labrador. Stopping before, Zuma squinted his eyes and stared into the pus-filled tumor, searching for any answers to the sea of questions. I could see things moving on the walls, Zuma Marshall breathed. What? Chase fearfully glanced around, panicked as something was looming over them. Like worms. The Dalmatian looked at the ceiling, and a lot of other things. I'm pretty sure those are just normal bugs, Liberty inquired. Probably attracted to the hive's atmosphere. Her words did a little to calm him, as Marshall worriedly glanced back at the wall. Only a thin layer of bloodied muscle separated them from the creatures infesting walls. The worms moved unnaturally, squirming through the cold blood and fluid to meet Marshall's gaze. A lingering cloud of uncertainty came over the firefighter, a feeling that he didn't yet understand until his mind clicked. He had seen those worms before recently. He remembered the vacation day back at the lake, when he had kicked a worm off of his leg back in the water. Wasn't that the same worm, was it? He couldn't place the memory. It was all too foggy for him to remember clearly. The squirming tubes danced like veins, thriving in their cylindrical bodies before them. It was almost felt like the worms weren't looking back at him. A revelation had sent a shock down his spine. These guys were certainly not normal bugs. Guys! Zuma jumped back. There's a person floating in here. Everyone turned around at once to see the lab recoiling in terror. Before they could say anything, Zuma swiped down with his dull claws, tearing into the boil. The attack produced a slit in the skin-like casing, then suddenly popped out as liquid fluided out, causing the dogs to rear back in disgust. The casing deflated as it was emptied, and a human woman fell off, landing on her side. Marshall wanted to scream, Chase wanted to howl, and now they were all hair's length from exploding in an uproar of terror. But they couldn't. As much as they wanted to scream, they simply couldn't be at the risk of alerting the creature to their location. Wait a minute, Chase narrowed his eyes, walking past Rocky and stepping into the puddle of emptied pus. I think I recognize her. You do? Liberty tilted her head, lowering his head for a moment for a closer look. Chase surveyed the corpse. The woman wasn't mangled, but it looked obvious that her bones had been broken. A few days ago, we got a call of a missing woman and her pet, he explained. We arrived on the scene, but then the ACG appeared and interrupted us. We never finished the mission. He grimaced, realizing that he just solved the case. Well, here she is. A haunting revelation hit the dogs. Every single boil they passed, every thriving sack grew from the wall, served as a purpose. Every one had a victim. It'd be human or animal. Housed inside it, Chase begged not to be true, but he approached another bulbous sack, sitting off straight. He could clearly see the silhouette of a dog floating inside. But why is it taking people? Zuma asked in disbelief. I thought it just killed things and ate them. Overhearing the conversation, Liberty walked ahead, not wanting to stare at the body any longer. As she trudged through the slime, which was starting to rise in elevation, she stopped when she spotted something obscure in the darkness, desperate for anything that would classify as a symbol. As Liberty was itching to escape the hellhole she was walking through, he made a way to haste the project. Perhaps they were in some kind of waste? Did Varrock's mouths even produce waste to begin with? She thought it was just another boil as she approached it, but as her eyes focused, she realized it was something completely new. It was an oval-shaped pod sitting quietly in the peaceful darkness. It was small, not bigger than her. It was covered in veins and multiple layers of biomass. As Liberty hesitantly pressed her paw to it, she found it warm to the touch, reluctantly moving her ear to it. She could hear faint sounds inside it, sounds that she couldn't describe. It's like gurgling, so quiet and low, she could barely make out it was there. Looking around the pod, she realized it wasn't just one. An entire second pod was sitting on its side nearby, and a third was even 2 feet away. as the dogs behind her cried into one another in distress. Liberty walked further down the passageway and stopped when she came to a distressing sight. The path continued, but along the walls, dozens of paws had been laid. There were clusters of them everywhere. Some were gently floating in the sludge, while others sat on top of the others. Her eyes went wide as the terrifying revelation hit her, and at the moment all courage held within her died away. "You mean to tell me there's every single one of those sacks passed with someone inside it?" Rocky recoiled. "How many people are even down here?" "No idea," Chase shook his head, "but I don't understand why it would just take people. Why store them all down here?" Liberty emerged from behind them, her face gone pale. "Food," she said simply. "They're meant to be food." "But why?" Zuma looked at her. "Why not just eat them down here then?" "Because it's food for something else," she replied, her voice shaking. "It's for the offspring." She shakily turned to head towards the pods that they had found, now extremely fearful of their presence. "It's laying eggs."